So you're probably wondering why it is that I always complain about mistaken ideas on the path, about misconceptions, where we go wrong and what the potential downfalls are once one starts to engage on the spiritual path. And why it is that I don't offer, or don't often offer, any positive advice, something that we can actually do and apply ourselves to. Well, principally, most fundamentally, once you've made that decision that you need some transformation, the first thing you need to do is take control of your life. And when I say take control of your life, what I mean is you need to have some baseline of stable physical and mental health. And this is before you start to actually practice. And again, this is a major mistake that we make on the spiritual path, and primarily for people from developed nations, what I call Western nations. We're suffering physically and mentally. We want a spiritual transformation. We want to make progress. And the first thing we think about is what to practice. In fact, that's what most people ask me when I speak to them, one-to-one, over Zoom. They ask me, what should I meditate on? Well, here's the point. You cannot meditate if you are not in control of the narrative. You cannot meditate if you don't have this baseline of physical and mental well-being. And the reason why we are not in control of our lives, the reason why we are not in control of the narrative, is because for most of us, we are flooded by negative emotions and controlled by our addictions. When I say addictions, I don't necessarily mean fentanyl or cigarettes. We have become habituated to entertainment, to pleasure, to comfort. It is the plague of the modern world. Our convenience and utility consume our entire life. These things consume our mind and also take up all of our time. And the point is, these young men and women who go off to the monastery in Nepal don't have any of this stuff. They already have very simple lives. And that's what we need before we can commence on the spiritual journey. We need to simplify our lives. We need to remove distraction. We need to reduce our addiction to self-cherishing. These are the things that make us feel comfortable. Comfort foods, entertainment, distraction, meaningless distraction. Because unless you are able to take control of your life, to simplify your life, to minimalize things, then you will not have sufficient time or mental space to practice. And here's the most important point. This is not something you can do all at once. I mean, some people are able to jump into the deep end of the pool without thinking about it, right? Jump into the cold ocean. Some people have a lot of strength and courage. And when we're younger, we certainly have more than when we get older. But for most people, you've got to take it one step at a time. Because if you just try to remove all of your addiction to the mundane world overnight, then usually you will fall back. For most of us, it is too much to just immediately get rid of our addictions. We have to do this step by step. And part of the reason why it's so difficult is because most of us are suffering so intensely, physically and mentally. And also, we've bought into the modern narrative that we actually need all that stuff, that we need our iPhones, that we need our health supplements, that we need our sources of entertainment and distraction. Many people I speak to spend hours every day network gaming. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with network gaming, but if you're a serious spiritual practitioner, it's going to consume a significant portion of your practice time. And it doesn't have to be violent 3D graphic video games. It could be something that seems quite innocuous, like playing chess online. And in our narrative, we tell ourselves by doing these things, we will increase our intelligence, for example. In order to go beyond the mundane world, we have to give up our attachment to the mundane world. We have to stop being hoodwinked, being deceived by the charlatans who are trying to enrich themselves through selling us all this junk. Like I say, the young men and women who go to the monasteries in the East don't have this problem. They may come from a village in a high mountain pass in the Himalayas, where they don't even have running water or sanitation. And so naturally, their minds are not distracted by likes and dislikes, the pursuit of pleasure. Sadly, these days, once they do come down out of the mountain and into the big city, like Kathmandu, to join a monastery, then they become exposed to the modern world. And how they do this is through social media, through devices like iPhones, tablets, computers, movies. Most of the young monks and nuns that can speak Hindi quite well. And that's because when they go to the monastery, then they start watching things like Bollywood movies. And so little by little, they acquire a taste for modern convenience and entertainment. And sadly, what happens is most of these, I would say the largest proportion of these young monks and nuns, then when they become adults, they leave the monastery. And many of them travel to the West, or they did in the past. It's more difficult now. Believing that somehow they will find this idyllic, pleasurable life that we have. And then when they come here to America, for example, what they realize is us Westerners are much worse off in terms of mental and physical health. And then they get swept up by the machinations of the modern world. The more stuff you want and you need, then the more you need to work. Unless you win the lottery, or you become an oligarch or something. I heard something recently, and that is that the middle class has disappeared. There's just those with wealth, excess wealth, and everyone else is struggling to get by. And this should not be the case. We don't need all this stuff. We don't need different kind of food every night. And most of these things that are being sold to us, whether it's packaged as natural or advanced medicines, these nutritional supplements, aren't really necessary. They just create another form of clinging, something else for us to cling to, something else that we think we cannot do without. I'm not telling you not to take your medications. Consult a doctor. Consult a nutritionist. This is also quite difficult if you live in the United States of America, because these things are very expensive and there isn't really public health care. Well, there is, but it's pretty poor. Something my teacher Akon Rinpoche had said really brought this point home. He said that the nomads who live on the high steppe in Tibet have a very poor diet with almost no variation whatsoever. They eat the same foods every day, all year long. And you might think, well, they can eat lots of meat because they're nomads, but that's not the case. Because when it comes to, let's say, predatory animals, for example, lions on the Serengeti plain, then what you need are hundreds of animals for one individual if you're going to be a carnivore. And the nomads can't afford to kill an animal every day and eat it. So generally, what they do is they just live off milk or barley and dried cheese. Very, very limited diet. But he said, Akon Rinpoche said, that these people, he never hears them complaining about their nutrition and their health. In fact, they're very healthy and strong individuals. But here in the West, we have infinite choice of varieties of foods, nutritional supplements, and everyone is complaining about being unhealthy. And we certainly don't feel as if we are in control. What you call a yogi is somebody who is in control. So you need to simplify your life, minimalize things, and try not to be hoodwinked. Everybody's trying to sell you something, and that's because we live in a 100% transactional world. No one here understands a gifting economy. No one here understands the principle of non-transaction. We have been sold this narrative. There is no such thing as community. It's every man for himself. And so everybody's trying to sell you something that you don't need. You can get by without a mobile phone. You can get by without a flat screen TV. You can get by without network gaming. You can get by with more or less the same food every day. Let's face it, billions of people in the world do this. The more you need, the more you want, the more money you need, the more you have to work, the less time you're going to have for your practice. So my message to you first, before you think about high meditation practices, the Mahamudra, Dzogchen, tantric visualizations, first thing you should do is take control of your life. Don't give that over to the agency of somebody else. Don't give over your agency to the tech giants, to the government. Be independent. Don't be dependent upon others. If you develop spiritual qualities, then you will be a beacon for others. Others will be dependent upon you. You will be a shining example in this world of what is necessary, essential, and important. And it's my wish that you should take control over your life. You should be able to simplify things, get by with less work, with less money, fewer desires, and more easily satisfied. And once you've achieved that baseline, once you have control of the narrative, then the next step is to decide what it is you're going to practice. Until next time.